The Spectre of Global Communism. Mark Mallett, January 9, 2025. The encroachment, year after year, of well-placed globalists advocating socialism and communism, with world bodies attempting to eradicate Christianity, is well organized. It is relentless, intrusive, insidious, and Luciferian, captivating civilization to a place it will never aspire to, no, worked towards. The goal of self-appointed global elite is total replacement of biblical values in Western civilization. Ted Flynn, Garabandal, The Warning and the Great Miracle. There is a stunning prophecy that I have been reflecting on over the holidays, and now, as 2025 unfolds, a sobering reality is washing over me daily as I watch and pray. In light of the sign of the times, it is also the now word at the beginning of this new year that we are facing the spectre of global communism. When communism comes again. This word was announced to the children of the Apparitions site in Garabandal, Spain, in 1961, as a follow-up of sorts to the warning at Fatima, Portugal, in 1917. Our Lady had warned then that, if Russia was not consecrated to her Immaculate Heart, and the world did not respond with penance, that Russia would spread her errors. What errors? The philosophies of socialism, Marxism, and atheism, which found their practical expression in communism. The Blessed Mother's message was crystal clear. If my requests are heeded, Russia will be converted, and there will be peace. If not, she will spread her errors throughout the world, causing wars and persecutions of the Church. The good will be martyred. The Holy Father will have much to suffer. Various nations will be annihilated. Message of Fatima. At the time of Our Lady's appearances in Garabandal, communism held in its icy grip several nations, spanning 11 time zones. The errors of Russia were not only prevalent throughout the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, but they also poisoned Spain, China, Cuba, Vietnam, and other nations, leaving nothing but death and oppression in their wake. Most alarmingly, communism was beginning to wind its way into Western thought through the young, which is why Our Lady's message to Garabandal seer Conchita Gonzalez, 812 at the time, was so stunning. The so-called warning, miracle, and chastisements, foretold in part at Fatima, would come when communism returns. But wait, it hadn't even left it. When communism comes again, everything will happen. What do you mean by comes again? Yes, when it newly comes again, she replied. Does that mean that communism will go away before that? I don't know, replied Conchita. The Blessed Virgin simply said, when communism comes again. Interview Garabandal. The Finger of God. Albrecht Weber. The war against the Church. Many will point to the fall of the Berlin Wall and demise of the Soviet Union in 1991 as the collapse of communism. But communism continued to exist in its ugly pre-Cold War state in North Korea and remained the dominant philosophy in China. It never left there. So what does Our Lady mean when communism comes again? To understand, we have to recognize the underlying purpose of communism and its philosophical foundations rooted in Freemasonry. Communism is not just another political ideology, but the ideology intended to supplant the Catholic Church. Russia was not the goal, but the experiment. Russia was considered the best prepared field for experimenting with a plan elaborated decades ago, and who from there continued to spread it from one end of the world to the other, Pope Pius XI, Divine Redemptress. This is why Pope after Pope condemned Freemasonry and Communism. It was seen as the primary existential threat to Christendom. At this period, however, the partisans of evil seemed to be combining together and to be struggling with united vehemence, led on or assisted by that strongly organized and widespread association called the Freemasons, no longer making any secret of their purpose. They are now boldly rising up against God Himself. That which is their ultimate purpose forces itself into view, namely, the utter overthrow of whole religious and political orders of the world which the Christian teaching has produced, and substitution of a new state of things in accordance with their ideas, of which the foundations and laws shall be drawn from mere naturalism. Pope Leo XIII, April 20th, 1884. So, to answer our question of what does Our Lady mean by when communism comes again, it seems clear that she is referring to when communism once again threatens Christendom, traditionally understood as Western civilization. In fact, one cannot underestimate the prophetic implications of the present collapse of the West. The early Church Fathers actually understood the Roman Empire's dissolution as the chief harbinger that lifts the retainer, holding back the Antichrist and a global political system St. John called the Beast. Revelations 13, 1-10. I grant that as Rome, according to the prophetic Daniel vision, succeeded Greece, so Antichrist succeeds Rome, and our Saviour, Christ, succeeds Antichrist. But it does not hence follow that Antichrist is come, for I do not grant that the Roman Empire is gone. Far from it, the Roman Empire remains even to this day, and as the horns or kingdoms still exist, as a matter of fact, consequently, we have not yet seen the end of the Roman Empire. St. John Henry Newman, 1801 to 1890, The Times of the Antichrist, Sermon 1. This revolt, or falling off, is generally understood by the ancient fathers of a revolt from the Roman Empire, which was first to be destroyed before the coming of the Antichrist. It may, perhaps, be understood also of a revolt of many nations from the Catholic Church, which was, in part, happened already, by the means of Mallett, Luther, etc., and it may be supposed will be some general in the days of the Antichrist. But today, St. John Henry Newman would easily agree with Benedict XVI, who, in 2010, compared the present state of the West to the collapse of the ancient Roman Empire. For all its new hopes and possibilities, our world is at the same time troubled by the sense of moral consensus is collapsing. Consensus without which judicial and political structures cannot function. This fundamental consensus, derived from the Christian heritage, is at risk, in reality. This makes reason blind to what is essential. To resist this eclipse of reason and to preserve its capacity for seeing the essential, for seeing God and man, for seeing what is good and what is true, is the common interest that must unite all people of goodwill. The very future of the world is at stake. Pope Benedict XVI, December 20th, 2010. If we are now in the final stage of collapse of this Roman Empire in its remnant form, it is precisely because communism has begun to return. Communism, then, is coming back again on the Western world because something died in the Western world, namely, the strong faith of man in the God that made them. Archbishop Fulton Sheen, Communism in America. Venerable Sheen's prophetic insight was punctuated, if not sealed, decades later by Cardinal Robert Serra in a crucial critique of the spiritual collapse of the Western world. The spiritual crisis involves the entire world, but its source is in Europe. People in the West are guilty of rejecting God. The spiritual collapse thus has a very Western character, because man refuses to acknowledge himself as an heir of spiritual and cultural patrimony. Man is condemned to the hell of liberal globalization, in which individual interests confront one another without any law to govern them, besides profit at any price. April 5th, 2019. This liberal globalization is nothing other than the so-called Great Reset, a transhumanist revolution blending capitalism and communist principles to raise up a global beast with total control and surveillance over every aspect of our lives. The primary two levers of control by the global elite are pandemics and climate change. Convincing the public to give up stakes and property rights is annoying, so the excuse of climate emergency was created as a non-negotiable reason to dismantle the free market and democratic governance. A pattern is emerging. International bureaucracies use net zero to force governments to destroy their agricultural sectors. Wealth immediately vanishes from the middle and working classes, triggering serious civil unrest. A crisis is declared, one that can only be escaped if the public accept handouts and a permanently reduced quality of life beholden to the generosity of the state. The nation is reset with significant transfer of wealth and rights. July 11, 2022. The Spectator. What is remarkable, so stunningly deceptive, is that many believe that the mandated health care and climate measures are being taken for the common good. In truth, they are being used to introduce a central bank digital currency, digital IDs, vaccine passports, and austerity measures that will ultimately usher in a neo-communist regime over the entire globe. When we have cast ourselves upon the world and depend for protection upon it, and have given up our independence and our strength, then Antichrist may burst upon us in fury as far as God allows him. Then suddenly the Roman Empire may break up, and Antichrist appears as a persecutor, and the barbarous nations around break in. Blessed John Henry Newman, Sermon 4, The Persecution of Antichrist. Right now, Satan is no longer hiding himself. His character is on full display, a murderer from the beginning and the father of lies. Yes, that was Jesus' prophecy of communism in full bloom. The final confrontation. With the collapse of the Berlin Wall, St. John Paul II understood exactly what the world and the Church had just gone through, but also what she was facing. We are now standing in the face of the greatest historical confrontation humanity has gone through. I do not think that wide circles of the American society or wide circles of the Christian community realize this fully. We are now facing the final confrontation between the Church and the Antichrist, of the Gospel and the Anti-Gospel of Christ versus the Antichrist. It is a trial of 2,000 years of culture and Christian civilization with all of its consequences for human dignity, individual rights, human rights, and the rights of nations. Cardinal Karol Wojtyla at the Eucharistic Congress, Philadelphia, August 13, 1976. I am convinced that the terrifying beast that the prophet Daniel foresaw, and that St. John detailed in Revelation 13, and that now rises in our midst, is essentially what the woman clothed in the sun warned at Fatima, the rise of communism. It is the battle between the ancient serpent and the dragon, Satan, against the woman and her offspring, Jesus and his church, Genesis 3:15. This is why Our Lady's apparitions around the globe have exploded exponentially in the last century. This is why icons and statues of Our Lady and Lord have been weeping throughout the world. This is why God has poured out a spirit of prophecy in these last days, for the appearance of the Antichrist signals the imminence of the day of the Lord. It will come to pass in the last days, God says, that I will pour out a portion of my Spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your young men shall see visions, your old men shall dream dreams. Indeed, upon my servants and my handmaidens I will pour out a portion of my Spirit in those days, and they shall prophesy. And I will work wonders in the heavens above, and signs on the earth below, blood, fire, and a cloud of smoke. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the coming of the great and splendid day of the Lord. And it shall be that everyone shall be saved who calls on the name of the Lord. Acts 2:17-22. In other words, as Our Lady said at Garabandal, when communism comes again, everything will happen. Communism has not waned. It resurfaces in the midst of this great confusion on earth and great spiritual distress. Our Lady to Luz de Maria Bonilla, April 20th, 2018. We see now the power of the Antichrist is expanding, and we can only pray that the Lord will give us strong shepherds who will defend his church in this hour of need from the power of evil. Pope Benedict XV, January 10th, 2023.
Welcome to Mother in Refuge of the End Times. We are excited to be releasing our 4th book of prayers, introducing our most comprehensive book of prayers to date, entitled My Daily Prayer Book, Hope of a New Heaven and a New Earth. This collection of the most beautiful prayers is dedicated to and inspired by the Queen and Mother of the End Times. As is seen on the cover page, immerse yourself in the profound richness of Catholic tradition with Mother in Refuge of the End Times, My Daily Prayer Book. This meticulously curated collection features prayers for every moment and every occasion, providing spiritual support and inspiration throughout your day. Begin each morning with powerful prayers like the morning offering in the prayer to obtain the grace of all the world's masses. Deepen your devotion with prayers dedicated to the divine will and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Honor significant moments with consecration prayers, including those to our Blessed Mother, Saint Joseph, in the most Sacred Heart of Jesus. Engage in heartfelt devotions to the precious blood in the Holy Rosary, and find comfort in the timeless supplications to Our Lady. Enhance your spiritual armor with prayers for protection, conversion, reparation in the Holy Trinity. This comprehensive prayer book also includes special sections for confession, Mass, the Holy Souls, bedtime, and saint intercessions, ensuring you are spiritually fortified at all times. Perfect for personal devotion or as a thoughtful gift, this prayer book is your companion in faith, offering solace, strength, and a deeper connection with God. Enrich your spiritual journey today and embrace the power of prayer with Mother and Refuge of the End Times, my daily prayer book. As always, we thank you so much for your support of this ministry, and may the Lord always shed His grace and love upon you.